dedicated to the only serious choice, the gospel of Jesus Christ in music and the spoken word. You're watching Light Source Victory Television live with me, your host, Pastor Jason McCauley, inviting you to sit back and relax for the next 55 minutes or so as we continue our journey into the life-changing, life-giving, everlasting word of the Most High God. My friends, it is indeed time for the most important hour of the day, Bible study. Now, of course, it is my Bible study time that I spend with you. I try to do it each and every Sunday through Friday right here on accesstv.org, on Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Twitter, what else? YouTube, and other social media as we broadcast live from the greatest city on earth, Hartford, Connecticut, New England's rising star. Oh yeah. Silver Sergeant in the background. Handwriting on the wall. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 1 on your screen. This is where we were last time we were together live, so this is where we will pick it up right now. So let's bring chapter 4, verse 1 to the top of the screen. And this is where we will pick it up. We are studying here in Ecclesiastes, and we're talking about the, vanity of vanities. Everything is vanity and vexation of spirit. Everything leaves you empty, void. Let's hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God, serve his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. All right? Fear God, keep his commandments. There we go. The old rude, unmuted mic shift. The futility of life. And that's not meant to be depressing. It's meant to be practical so that people begin to focus on that which matters most in life. And the necessity of doing something that really actually matters. And so we're going through a series of all the things that you can do under the sun, as Solomon gave his heart to know, right? He was king, and he just did all these things to search out and to find wisdom, if he would, the meaning of things. So if you missed our teaching, my study in this, then you can find it by going to any of the mediums by which I mentioned, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, accesstv.org, channel 10. And you can get caught up. Or, of course, you can always read this for yourself. Again, I observed all the oppression that takes place under the sun. This is the king observing this. All right. It would be tantamount to if you went to Niagara Falls, the American side, right, or the U.S. side, because it's all still North America. So if you went to New York and looked at the falls, and you saw people swimming in the water, shouting, the boat capsized, and you come back and you tell us about it. Then I saw them arms was swinging in the water. I saw a helicopter, the thing swooped down, and a guy had a little thing on his belt, and he lowered into the water. He grabbed the baby and the lady, and they pulled them up, and they went to safety. So think of it like that. Someone's giving you an account, like when we were going over Revelation. It was the report of John. Well, this is the report of Solomon. telling all the things that he observed in life when he went to purposely search and find out where could he find wisdom, where could he find meaning. And so now he is observing oppression, all the oppression that takes place under the sun. He's in a great position to be able to figure this out because he's the king. If anybody knows oppression, it would be the king, right? He can see, though, he knows who's being oppressed and who's not, who receives justice and who doesn't. He knows this. You know, judges and lawyers and elected officials and citizens and the oppressed, the non-oppressed, they generally, people can look out their windows and go up and down the highways and the byways and they can see who the oppressed are. All right. I saw the tears of the oppressed with no one to comfort them. The oppressors have great power and their victims are helpless. Now, I think that's a pretty true statement. You see what's happening in China? China was having all this civil unrest and protests of people saying that, the COVID crackdowns were too restrictive and it was oppressing the people. And the government eased up. Now, they didn't say we're making a mistake. We shouldn't have done this. They're saying, well, now that the COVID has changed, we can now ease up. And so we're going to back away. You don't have to go through all of the rigid restrictions you had to get into malls and shopping places and things along that line. Because the people were being, there was this great unrest. And that kind of unrest can threaten the dictatorial powers. You see what's going on in Iran right now with the civil unrest, with the morality police. The dictatorial people, the dictatorial powers in charge that have been oppressing the people. Irrespective of what the justification for the oppression is, it is still oppression. And people suffer. So they have a big dilemma in their hands. It was reported as of the time that this program is live. It was reported that the morality police have been disbanded, but that's not true. It was not disbanded. The government had put out information that it was disbanded in an effort to cause people to think that, okay, we can chill and go home now because we're getting our way. All right. But they did not disband. See, they're playing games with the people. See, oppressors always do this. Oppressors generally can get a sense of we need to ease up. You notice how gasoline is coming down. Right? The price of gas is, for all intents and purposes, plummeting. Well, why is the gas plummeting when the conditions that cause the gas to go up are still happening? And if not just happening, but getting worse. The so-called war in Russia, right, was the cause of gas prices skyrocketing. But yet they're coming down. Well, people will start to get upset. You can't have folk getting upset. So when people use methods to oppress, understand that folk rise up, right? Had a group of people oppressed here in the United States during the last election cycle with Black Lives Matter. So people started taking to the streets, right? En masse. Burning buildings and smashing windows and having protests all over the country. These protests went from here and they went other places around the world. And, concessions were made. Right? Whenever there's people rising up, you have to find a way to appease the masses so they begin to they push back down, right? It's always the case. You could pick out all kinds of uprisings throughout the world and see what happens when people protest. Well, people do that because they are oppressed, and the oppressors have great power, and their victims are generally helpless. So I concluded that the dead are better off than the living. Now, this is a profound statement here in verse 2. Imagine such oppression that to reconcile this within one's mind, one views the option of death to be better than living. That's some pretty bad stuff. All right. Because there are many cases where the oppressed don't have the luxury or the liberty to gather in mass and push back. All right. Some that are oppressed have no way to push back. Lives are absolutely miserable. There are people who are kidnapped, sold into sex bondage. Then not going to be no uprising. Right? People that are forced to be in severe living conditions. There's no upright. Suppose you were sentenced to a life in prison and you were innocent, and there's no one to plead your case, and you are just locked up somewhere behind iron bars in an iron facility that's deep in the heart of the earth, and there is no escape. No escape. You know, you could be in Guantanamo Bay or something like that, and they're using extreme measures to extract information from you, and so you undergo torture. You're not getting out. Nobody's coming for you. In that case, one might seek out death. It can't find it. It would be better to be dead than to be alive. This is the conclusion that he is making here. So I concluded that the dead are better off than the living. Verse 3, top of the screen. But most fortunate of all are those who are not yet born, for they have not seen all the evil that is done under the sun. Now it's just a death spiral of depression as you go round and round the circle into the vortex of the whirlpool. That's pretty bad. So not only is the life of the oppressed a horrible one, not only is there misery and oppression all over, or I should say oppression and as a result misery all over and great, but that it is so bad that one would rather be dead than alive, and even better yet, never to have been born. Better to never have been born. That's like next level oppression. Because most people really don't understand what it is to be oppressed. Most certainly, if you're watching this program, I would dare to say that you have the luxury of having, at the very least, electronic device that lets you see this, whether it's your phone, a television, smart TV, something, but you've got internet, you've got some kind of capacity to view this. So as bad as you would think things may be, no. Imagine being so oppressed that you'd say it would be better not to be born. Suppose you lived in some country that's on the African continent and the whole village is starving. There's no food. All right, and there's been a drought, and now there's famine, and the little children are starving to death. And it could be easy to come to a conclusion that it would be better if these poor kids were never born. All right. I mean, we can go much. We could take side avenues off of that and link it to other social issues where the death of the unborn become a viable option, because those who are alive figure, well, who would want to be born into such misery? The plight before, and they haven't been born yet, mind you. Okay, so you can see where the idea and notion of oppression can become so overwhelming that it becomes an option not to be born. Unfortunately, for those of us who are alive, we've been born. This too is vanity and vexation of spirit, right? There's nothing you can do about it. So you wind up in a state of helplessness. The scores of people who undertake good deeds on the planet, in your state, in your town, in your city, that do good deeds day in and day out and day in and day out, and they sacrifice of themselves, they give of themselves the riches of their substance, of their time, of their energy, only to have the very people who they're trying to help take something from them, or stab them in the back, or just abuse the help that you give. You know? Vanity and vexation of spirit. In what efforts that human beings undertake is there a sustained reward? And thus the conclusion of the whole matter: fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Because the only place you get a sense of reward, the only place you can go, the only work you can do that is truly fulfilling, is the things that you do when you step out in faith, in obedience to the leading of the Lord. Because now the reward you get isn't from the work. The reward you get is from knowing that you are walking in obedience to the Lord. Amen. Verse 4, top of the screen. You're watching Light Source Victory Television Live. I'm your host, Pastor J.C. McCauley. And we are pressing our way through Bible study. Then I observed that most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors. Hey, you talk about something sad. Imagine that the ultimate reason or rationale that people are successful is because they envy something their neighbor has done, or envy something their neighbor has. You talk about empty. I mean, the reason isn't so that one could better oneself, so that one can have a sense of fulfillment, this, that, and the third. It's because they got something I don't have. So now I'm envious of what they have, and that's my motivation. Be better than themism. Be better than themism. Right? To the degree that there are groups of people on the planet who don't like other groups of people on the planet. But because those groups of people on the planet have access to things that you want, you emulate and try and imitate and be like them or better than them, even though you don't like them. So the motivation for your being, the motivation for your doing isn't because it's going to make you better. It's simply because you're envious of what they have. That's just wild. All right. But this is a fact of human nature. This is a fact of people. The king observed that most people are motivated to success. Most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors. But this too is what? Meaningless. Vanity and vexation of spirit, like chasing the wind. Fools fold their idle hands, leading them to ruin. And yet, verse 6, and yet, Better to have one handful with quietness than two handfuls with hard work and chasing the wind. Powerful statement. Powerful statement. Verse 7, I observed yet another example of something meaningless under the sun. This is the case of the man who is all alone. Verse 8, without a child or a brother, yet works hard to gain as much wealth as he can, but then asks himself, who am I working for? Why am I giving up so much pleasure now? There are the individuals who will work themselves literally to the bone, have great wealth, great possessions amassed, and for what? To the degree that they sidestep opportunities to have pleasure, to be entertained, to actually live life, right? They're working to gain a better quality of life, but they're working so hard that they never ever get to enjoy life. And then at the end of their hourglass, they find that there's no one to even leave all that they've worked so hard to attain, all that they've worked so hard to get, to possess. There's no one to leave it to. Imagine the emptiness at the end of that run, right? Works hard, no kids, no brother, yet works hard, gains wealth, has as much as one can possibly have. But who am I working for? Why am I working? All right? Why am I giving up so much pleasure now? It is all so meaningless and depressing. Two people are better than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one falls, the other can reach out to help. But if someone who falls alone is really in trouble, right? Right? I mean, do you remember Brad Davis? Brad Davis was a legendary icon in the greater Hartford area. A lot of people are old enough to remember him as the guy who had the dance show, and it was sponsored by Milk. And he went on from that right on through. He rode the wave of on-air personality and entertainer all the way to the end. Well, Brad told the story from when he was at home and he fell down the steps. He was home and alone. He couldn't get up. You know, help me, I've fallen, I can't get up. That's real. You get a certain age, even if you're at a young age, but particularly when you get older. It's not a joke to be holding the railing when you come down the steps. When you're a kid, you know, you could jump down steps. All right? You could just jump. And you think you're invincible. You know, you can roll down the hillside, and in the summertime you just roll, tumble down, and just stuff you do. But when you get older, the last thing you want to do is fall down some steps. He couldn't do anything. He knew, though, that the guy was coming to cut his lawn, and when he got finished cutting the lawn, he'd come to the back door and he would knock, and he would, so that he could get paid. Well, Brad was in proximity to that, so that's what he did to the guy saw him. All right, now that's the story that he told, and then he did a broadcast from the hospital. Because he's a broadcaster's broadcaster, Brad Davis. Some people like him, some people don't, but the greatness of him as a broadcaster is beyond anyone's. You can't question that, right? And so, if he'd had someone in the house, he could have said, someone help me. I fell. I need your help. There's people who are going into their basement to get something, fall down the steps, and literally die. Seniors, older people, all right? Quite capable, but they fell. And as a result, they couldn't get up. No one comes by to help them, and so they're doomed. That's why particularly this time of year, you hear people say, check in on your seniors and things along that line. Check in on your loved ones. Call your loved ones up, see how they're doing. Do a good and welfare check. Stop by somebody's house, see how they're doing on a regular basis. And if they don't answer the door, something might be wrong. All right. Eventually, someone goes by to see them. I heard on the news today, guy bought a house. There was a corpse in his basement. He just bought the house. The house was sold by the sheriff's department or something like that. So apparently the person must have died down there, and no one went in the basement and checked. They didn't know. And so the person fell or something happened to him. I don't know. I heard this on the news this morning. I don't know the circumstances of how the person perished. But if they weren't alone, someone could have helped them. Even worse, you go hiking or walking up Uline, go up to Uline Tower and walk on the trail back there and fall. You just going out for a stroll, taking some view of Avon from up there at the tower. You walk on Avon Mountain over there, and you look down into the city or into the town of Avon. Or if you go up into the tower, you can see all around. You can see the Connecticut River. You can see down, and you can see all over the place. Beautiful view up there if you've never been up there. All right. And so, you go up there by yourself, and you're walking in the woods and you trip, all right? Or you break an ankle because you saw some sort of creature over there, turkeys or, deer or, raccoon or, some sort of bobcat or little mountain lion or whatever they have around here that's got teeth and can bite you. And the thing start chasing you through the woods, and you run and scream and help. This, that, and the third, and you turn to see where it is. You turn back around. There's a low-hanging branch. You hit the branch. Next thing you know, you waking up. It's nighttime. You can't see. The dark is not a friend when you're in the woods by yourself. You can't see the terrain. You're by yourself. You're alone. If you had somebody with you, you could get some help, right? Two is better than one. If one person falls, the other can reach out and help them. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble. Real trouble. All right? There's some things you should never do by yourself. All right? Being in ministry, this is something you learn in how to be a minister 101. I go in the Wayback Machine 40 years. Okay? You don't go visiting people by yourself. You just don't. You just don't. I did that until I would go visit somebody by myself. Until I went over the house and I got into the house and they really wanted me to stop by. And so I went over to the house, and I get in the house, and they have, the largest TV I'd ever seen. And we're going 40 years back. This is way, way, way before the flat screen television. This is back when 240 lines of resolution was like Polaroid picture as far as people were concerned. Back when back before Blockbuster Video, And you could go and rent a videotape from Blockbuster, and you put that VHS tape in the machine, and you hit the play button, you watch a James Bond movie or some other movie, and you thought you were doing something. And you know, it was 220 lines of resolution. And it was like, you know, people were good with that. They were good with that. All right. So he had this huge, like 25-inch or 32-inch screen television. It was big, you know, and, you know, the big old cathode ray tube. And he said, he pointed at it. He was so proud. He pointed at it. He says, look. I said, oh, well, oh, how about that? He says, it's you. I said, yeah, I can see that. He says, yeah, I watch you on this. I watch you on this. Every night you're on, I watch you on this. This is a big screen. And you're here. You're here in my house now. And I was thinking in my mind, how can I get out of here? Because if I can't, I'm by myself. No one would know where I was or what. I'm just gone. Right? Then I, you know, try to put a little distance between me. Then, you know, he call, and then next thing you know, I would, you know, he was mad at me because I wouldn't talk to him. Now, people like to command your time sometimes, you know. So I wouldn't talk to him. So then what he did, he started calling me, and he on the phone would ring. I would see that, you know, I would hear that it was him. I wouldn't see that it was him because this was before a cell phone. You know, you couldn't really see who it was. This was the dawn of Radio Shack caller ID. You remember caller ID? Remember you could dial a certain number and it would ring back whoever it was who called you? All right. And so I would let it go over to voicemail, or the record. It wasn't called voicemail back then. It was just called the answering machine, right? So I let it go over to the answering machine, and you would hear the toilet flushing. You hear the toilet flushing. I know you can hear me. I know you can hear me. This is what I think of you. Right? And that's, oh, goodness. So, you know, after that, I stopped going places by myself to people's houses, because everyone is not on a stable beam. It just is. And so if you have somebody with you, two is better than one, right? So you take somebody with you. Jesus sent them out what? In twos, pairs. You go out in a pair. There's someone with you. See, the scripture never contradicts itself. Ever. There are no contradictions in the word of God. There may be areas that are unclear to you, that are a mystery to you, or where you don't have an understanding, but there are no contradictions. None. Two is better than one. Likewise, two people laying close together can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? Right? You know, if you're on an airplane, a plane crashes, and you know, you get two people in a sleeping bag, you keep each other warm. All right? Because you have the body heat of somebody else. This is like this. You can't get no more practical than this. This is just straight out practical. All right. This is talking about a situation where the cold can kill you. So, two laying next to one another can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? You can't. A person standing alone can be what? Attacked. Jumped. Right? Verse 12, top of the screen. A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated. But two can stand back to back and conquer. One of my best friends on the planet used to always joke, right? Someone has to be a witness. Someone has to be a witness. Right, so he figured his job was to run and go get the police. No sense in both of us dying, right? I can tell the police what happened. So you run to get the police. So, pray that the one you're with is not running to go get the police, so that there's back to back. You have the opportunity to fight off the assailant. But if you're by yourself, you go from being alone to being a victim. You go into the victim column, right? Late last night, man was walking down the street by himself. He was jumped and accosted by assailants. They beat him not to death, but just shy of it. He's in critical condition, and if you have any information that could lead to the arrest of the assailant, please call the Hartford Police Department at 1-800-WITNESS, right? But if there was two of you, then you could fight off somebody. Someone might not be so apt to jump you if there's two. You see what I'm saying? So to be by oneself, to be alone, is not always that practical. Now, sometimes solitude is to be preferred because, sometimes, you don't want to be around folk, right? I'm just being real. Sometimes you don't want to be bothered with people, okay? But better to have someone with whom you can stand back to back with. 3 are even better. A triple braided cord is not easily broken. All right? So with 3, you can really start to do some serious damage. With 3. But by yourself? Alone? It is better to be poor but wise, right? It is better to be a poor but wise youth than an old and foolish king who refuses all advice. You ever meet people that just can't, they won't take any advice. No matter what kind of advice you give them, you are automatically at a deficit because no one could be possibly no humanly way that anyone could be smarter than they are. So, they're old now, right? Wise youth who is poor is better than an old, foolish king who refuses all advice, right? Money isn't the end all to be all. Money isn't everything. Wealth isn't everything. In fact, it's actually very little. Wealth affords, money is a tool, and wealth can give you access to resource. And if you use the resource correctly, you can do great things. You can build things. You could build rocket ships to go to the moon. You could do things like build houses, and you can have others in your employ who can carry out the work necessary to make your vision come to pass because you have money. All right. Let's say, for instance, you seek political office and you don't have no money. Well, part of winning an election is money, message, and manpower. That's the 3 M's. Money, message, manpower. Manpower, message, money. You can mix it up any way you want, but you got to have all 3. All right. Now, at least 2 of the 3. You got to have at least money and a message. Right? If you got money and a message, you can buy the manpower. If you've got manpower and message, maybe you don't need a lot of money because the manpower will allow you to be able to do some things. All right. If you have no manpower No message. But you have money? You can buy people who can tell you what to say. You can buy people who can have a message, and you can buy people who might even vote. So if you roll into town with $1 million, guess what? You could do a whole lot. But if you don't have any money, you're done, right? You don't have a message, you're done. And no manpower, you're done. Done. But money moves people, right? Money moves people to do all kinds of things, because money is a tool that gives you access to resource, right? The king has all kinds of money. He has all kinds of power. But if he is a fool, if he won't listen to anyone, then what good is he? He's just a foolish king and refuses any advice. So just because you don't have money simply means you just don't have a lot of resource. But you know, it is better to be wise than to be rich. Far, 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 far better to be wise than to be rich. Such a youth could rise from poverty and succeed. He might even become king, though he has been in prison. But then everyone rushes to the side of yet another youth who replaces him. Endless crowds stand around him. Verse 14. Endless crowds stand around him. But then another generation grows up and rejects him as well. So it is all meaningless, like chasing the wind. How sad it is to be that wise young youth who comes from obscurity, out of poverty, grows to become influential and successful, and then becomes the king. But now another person comes along, and another person becomes popular, and another person rises up, and the people who once thought he was such a wise king no longer honor him. This too is vanity and vexation of spirit, right? Popularity comes, popularity goes. One person's popular today, the next day, folk don't remember their name. This too is empty. This too is like a vapor. Only what you do for the Lord will last. Submit yourself to the Lord. Serve him. Keep his commandments and walk by faith. My friends, that's the whole duty of man, right? Fear God, keep his commandments. If you do these things, your life will be rich and full. God will give you the tools you need to do the things that you have to do, because he equips those he calls. God calls people to do all kinds of works, all kinds of ministry, all kinds of service to people. All right? When you do service to people out of a pure heart as led by the Spirit, they're ministered to. And you are full or fulfilled because of the work you did to bring the glory to the Lord. If the work you're doing is to get glory from somebody else or hope that they will appreciate it, be careful. Be careful. All right? I've met more than a few great human beings, community folk, who spend their entire lives working to make life better for other people, only to be gravely disappointed in the end. I know some people who are some of the most bitter people as a result of that kind of work that they did, because no one remembers them. No one recognized the work that they were doing. They did all this work. They did community stuff, and now It's just, just they're a forgotten. They're not even a footnote. Why? Are the people ungrateful? No. No. Can you remember every place that you've ever stopped on the highway? When you had to go to the bathroom, you pulled over and you went into the place, you got a sandwich, went to the bathroom, got back in the car and moved on. You didn't write them a letter of how great they were, how clean the bathroom was, and what an opportunity it was for a moment of remembrance. You had a need, and the need was fulfilled. And that roadside stop was available to supply the need. If you make yourself a utility, a need, then all kinds of people will come to take advantage of the utility you're offering, particularly if it's free. There'll be no shortage of people to come and use the free facility or take part of the free need. I mean, you have a spring in the backyard that bubbles up the best gravy ever made, and people coming with bowls to get the free gravy, right? The juice reserved for the king, and it's flowing out of the ground, and you can get you all the gravy you can handle. All right. Well, yeah, people will take it. Why? Because it's free, and it's something that they need or want. So because somebody has a need or a want does not resonate in most people as something for which to be eternally grateful. You have a need, you go shop every week for food. You don't write the supermarket and tell them what a great place they have and how you want to come and volunteer to wash the windows because they just provide a great service. You probably don't even know the name of the people who own the building or own the supermarket. You don't volunteer to go over there and shovel snow off the sidewalk. In fact, you want to know why the snow isn't shoveled off the sidewalk. You could slip and fall, right? I know some people who can't wait until it's slippery weather so they can walk into the Walmart and slip and fall because they know they're going to get some money, all right? I'm looking down because somebody might be watching, right? And so they don't see the store as a place that's providing them food and sustenance, access to the things that they need, right? So if you are just a utility, then people will be happy that they can get what they need from you. But at the end of the day, that's all it is. Something that fills a need. That's not the rationale or the reason to do what it is that you do. Earl Shepherd said, don't do your community work for the accolades and rewards of those in the community for who you are doing the work. Do the community work because it's something you love to do. If you're doing it for any other reason, stop now, right? Stop now. Don't do it. Only what you do for the Lord will last. Everything else is vanity and vexation of spirit, right? That's what it says. That's what it says. Verse 16 out of the King James. There is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after should not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and vexation of spirit, right? Everything is vanity. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity and vexation of spirit. Only what you do for the Lord will last. So, wake up. Walk by faith. Know that Jesus is Lord. He will order your footsteps and reward you for your obedience. And you will be fulfilled, energized, and happy in everything you do. Because that is the whole duty of man, my friends. We'll continue this when we get back together next time. Amen. The song is serious. Are you serious about the life you're living? Are you walking by faith? Inspired songwriter Ronnie Song, Grammy award-winning record producer from here in Hartford. Hartford's own, you know, a prophet is without honor in his hometown. But Hartford is blessed to have had Ronnie Song. I almost called him by his old given name. That's a private joke. Roll tape. My friends, when it's all said and done, the only thing you need to know is this fact, and that, of course, is Jesus saves. Listen to the words of the inspired songwriter, the psalmist. Amen. And let it minister to your heart. We'll see you next time. Tell someone you love them. Go out and have a conversation with an enemy. Get to know them. Bye.
Change directions, the mother's all cracked up, living